He is on page number 35 of your budget and page 85 of your salary. Right there, Marshall. The only thing on his salaries he's asked for is the cost of living for whatever the other county employees receive. My understanding.
That's right.
And then basically you can kind of scroll down there, so non-salary, it's a net, he pulled some on, he has an actual net increase over the week. He pulled some on his non-salary. And on his non-salary, he has a little over $7,000 net increase.
Say that last piece.
On his non-salary, he has a a little over $7,000 net decrease.
Decrease, all right.
So he's trying to kind of keep things up here.
And you apply the 6% cost of living that we did kind of across the board for building this out? No additional, no ask for new personnel or anything like that?
No, sir.
Okay,
The last couple of years we have, but we didn't this year because of downturn in the economy, and our staff has got so efficient with training, we feel like we can get by at this time. So
I thought you just did that because you heard the budget chair's mean. So,
What do you expect from you?
Yes, it
we
is.
have 4 considered property maintenance, and the other 3 are building, plumbing, mechanical inspectors.
all right. Any questions?
Shannon.
Good actually, Captain.
No, David, we haven't. Some long-term projections, we did ask for maybe a couple vehicles starting in '25, and in anticipation that we may be acquiring the state electrical inspectors. We've talked about that with the mayor and David Law, and I won't speak for them, but I think they're inclined to take a look at it. For
This will be
couple reasons.
next year's budget?
Yes.
The reason I want to look at it is a service issue. They think the county can probably give people quicker service.
Okay,
And
got it.
actually come out at least net, and probably net positive on that also.
Got it.
And you get better services. My understanding, the 2 issues, we get positive on it and get better service.
Will the state be swapping salaries?
Well, no, what it would be is they would leave it, they're charging the fee right now, the county would charge the fee to cover the cost. And the fee, we feel would be pretty much in line with them, and then also better service.
We put all them numbers together about 3 years ago, but it never went to the full commission. I think we won't take another look at it.
Right now with the pending probable recession, probably something to wait off on just a little bit, see what we're going.
Got it.
Well, I thought you did mention that budget. And then one thing to mention too, Dr. Lee, he did mention the long-term projections in the back. If you look, all your long-term projection sheets are in there, and they're actually a capital one. When we get to the actual hearings where you want to do adjustments and look at things, we can unfold all those categories. It shows each individual request, that way you'll know what makes it up and contested that thing. That's what a PC question.
Any further questions? Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner.
sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Shaw.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Okay, we got anybody, we don't have anybody else in
Well,
queue.
you've got IT, I'm clerk master.
The clerk master's here.
Let's see.
He was here, and then IT's here, either one of those.
We
is
can,
later.
we can do IT.
Clerk master's here.
Oh, all right, let's do clerk master.
All right.
We'll do clerk master's.
Oh, fine.
He's on page number 48 and page 83 for salary.
Whenever you're ready, sir.
All right. As you see, we're asking for, like the others, the 6% cost of living for our employees. We have made an adjustment, and we may have to make more adjustments. Right now, we don't know what we don't know about moving into the new building. I'm not sure what's going to happen on our computers and everything. I do have to commend our IT department. They have been super in helping us get things done, because what we have done, there's about 210 different clerks across the state of Tennessee in all different levels. We are the 5th clerk's office that has gone to electronic filing, and it has helped us immeasurably in COVID and the craziness that we've been going through the last several years. Now, because of that, we are hoping to go all paperless when we move into the new building. Right now, we can't do that because we have to have public access to computers. When we get in the new building, we'll have that for the first time ever. Right now, if you're in any way disabled, you can't get access to our public computer because it's on top of a filing cabinet because we have no room for a public access computer. So we'll have 2 stations where we'll have public access computers. Not sure exactly how that's going to work. The other thing that the Supreme Court in Tennessee is pushing is access to justice, to where they almost make us file the lawsuits for the people that come in, which is going to be interesting over the next several years. But we do have forms now. We have a lot of folks that do divorces on their own, and it usually doesn't work out well. But if they were able to work things out, they wouldn't be going through divorce.
Well, neither did the marriage, so I mean.
It does make things interesting. Now, so that's where we're concerned. We're gonna have more expenses because of computers, but in the long run, it's gonna save us money. We're already down 1 person who retired, and I did not replace her spot. Because I think with the computers and with the e-filing, we'll be able to make up for that. Right now, our office is awkward to say the least. We are where the jail was many years ago, and we have a very solid wall in between the 2 sides of my office. One side is probate, and delinquent taxes. The other side is divorces and everything else that we have. So you'll have 2 doors when you get off the elevator on the 4th floor. One side is probate and the other side is for the other matters that go on. Once we get in, we're going to be more efficient because we'll have everybody that will have access to everything. And it should make things run a little smoother. At least that's our goal. We are doing as much as we can right now. On Mondays and Tuesdays, Monday we were there till 5:30. Tuesdays is the probate day, so we keep busy on those 2 days. The other days are trials for the judge. And we have a judge who literally works 5.5 days a week, because on Friday afternoons, he tries to get his Monday docket ready. He takes the Saturday docket home with him. We get it Monday morning. We tell the people, you're either gonna have a Zoom hearing or you're not gonna have a Zoom hearing. So the technical aspects of the new office is gonna be great for us, because we're doing a lot of hearings by Zoom. And that works out well, because when you have witnesses that are in a different state, particularly in probate, they can participate and not feel like they're not involved anymore. So we've asked for a little more money there. I think it's only about $1,500, Mr. Line, for the computer aspect, because we have to depend on the state to provide our computers, where we have, they have the cloud and we store all of our stuff. So we're hoping that, we're busting at the seams right now in storage space. We're hoping to not have any files after the first of the year that we have to store from now on, because we've got files literally over here in the archives from when Andy Jackson used to practice law here in Sumner County. The library still has the bench where he practiced law, and you can go see that. It's kind of amazing that we have that much history and we still have that there. We have 7 full-time employees. We have 2 that we can use as part-time employees. 1 we don't use much anymore. The other one comes in 2 days a week. We also have an office or personnel sharing situation where with Sandra Vance, she is our parenting coordinator, because in Tennessee you have to go through parenting classes if you divorce and have minor children. And she handles probate. Well, she handles general sessions, where you can do a divorce, circuit where you can do a divorce, and chancery where you can do a divorce. Not sure, she always shows up on our pay stub, but we don't have any control over her budget. So I'm not sure where that is stuck now, Mr. Line.
Same place, and she's only got the,
Okay, and that's the only thing, because her budget is like $22,000 a year. But it comes up on hours. I sign off on the hours that she does, but she works for 3 different judges. And it saves us a lot of time, because these folks have to have that parenting in, or they can't, their divorce will not be granted.
Can you tell us what the other material supplies, this is a brand new line item for $2,500? Can you tell us what that's for?
That is for what we're anticipating that we're gonna need. We are probably gonna need some more information for the public access computers, and possibly a desk. We're not sure, but they've told us what furniture they have ordered, but we really didn't have any input on what furniture got ordered. So we're not sure whether we're gonna use that. What we have done, and what you may have noted, as I went through and looked back, I worked most of my life in the private sector, and I'm learning how all this goes, but I'm also a taxpayer.
That's what you told me that was for the public computer.
Yeah. So that is so we can get that. Over the last 3 budget years, on, I don't know how you call it, unused portions of the budget where we had money, we turned back in $69,000 last year. In 2021, we turned back in $58,000. In June of 2022, we turned back almost $61,000. There's some of the folks before me, they might have bought things that weren't needed simply because they had the money. We don't do that. We make sure that the taxpayers get their full money's worth when they come to the clerk and master's office. And we're going to continue to do that as long as I'm the clerk and master. That's about all that I have. Yes, sir.
It's not a big thing, but just notice that the overtime.
I saw that too.
Is that because of the move or?
Well, at one point, right now, we're not using that as much because with COVID, we have not been able to have tax sales. In order to have a tax sale, what we have done, and historically, is we have sent a certified mail to the person that owes us taxes, and they have to sign off on it, and we get the card back, and then we set it up, and we have a tax sale. Let's see, Mr. Winers? Yes, Steve is here. The problem we've had is every post office in the United States does their COVID stuff differently. And what we started getting back, we sent $16,000 worth of certified mail out one year, and they all came back COVID-19 because post office, all they had to do was stick it on the door. That's not good service. We have to be especially careful when we're selling someone's property for taxes. They have to have actual notice, they have to be able to participate, and if we can't show that, that sale gets set aside. So we have to make sure we do that. Now, the overtime is primarily for that because when we have a tax sale and when we send out all these forms, we have to use extra time, and we normally do that. We have one young lady who is excellent on our delinquent taxes. As a matter of fact, let's see, this year on delinquent taxes already, I've got it here somewhere. We have collected $593,715 in delinquent taxes. Now, last year, it was over $1 million in delinquent taxes, and that's without a tax sale.
That's what I'm saying. It's way down because we haven't had tax sales for the last 7 years.
But we've had,
Do we expect that tax sales will go back up?
yes. We're hoping, and Mr. Weiner, he and I have been talking about that. We have to give a notice in January that we're going to have a tax sale, and we follow up, and but we get everything in March. So usually about the 1st of April, we'll send out about $10,000 worth of mail, giving them notice that it's going to happen. Then usually about this time of year, we get a big boom, and people start paying because sometimes they don't realize that the money has not been escrowed, and they just don't know to pay. Now, when we had the big tax sale, right now we're in pretty good shape because they are paying. We'll send out letters, with Mr. Weiner and I are working on that now, letting them know that they're delinquent. And when we do that, we get a good return on that. And it's not nearly as expensive as giving out all the certified mail.
This will be a large item of my presentation
Okay.
as well, so just
Okay.
FYI.
We don't have to get into that. That answers my.
Okay.
We're way down this year on delinquent taxes. So far this year, we're way down on collections.
And part of that is that.
I mean, it's not a good
Because
thing
the sale
when there's a
because of
tax
all
sale,
that.
that's not what you
Mhm.
want, but.
That's why I'm saying these numbers here, especially that one, are depressed because of COVID and changing your delinquent tax attorneys and everything, just kind of slowed down this year.
I'm looking, let's see, in 2022, or the last tax year, for delinquent taxes, we collected 1.1 million.
This is the general fund portion here.
And then 2021, on delinquent taxes, we had 1.1 million, so we are down because of that. And people know that we can't go after them because we have a lot of people.
That's why you're seeing this right here. That's what I was telling them, because of COVID, and you change delinquent tax attorney, so it's kind of throw everything in a delay. That's why this is down, but then I brought it up next year because we should be having a tax sale.
We should be, and that'll come up probably right again. Now, one of the things that we have seen is we will have people come in when we send out letters and tell them they're delinquent, that will literally bring a bag, grocery bags full of money, and will tell us, okay, count that and see how many parcels I can pay for, which is interesting. And what we've had to do, because some of the other offices here run into this, we had to buy a money counter that figures out when you have counterfeit bills in there. You don't think about that when someone coming into a government office to pay, but it's happened here in our county, so we want to make sure that doesn't happen on our delinquent taxes. But we'll have some days, we'll have $20,000, $30,000 worth of cash, and some days even more when we go to the bank to deposit that because of delinquent taxes. So we don't take partial payments. We'll tell them, okay, we'll take as much money and pay, and some of them will have 5 or 6 parcels of land, and they'll say, I want to do this one and that one, and they know it's coming up 1.5% each month that they don't pay. But I don't know why they wait till the last minute. And then we have a whole bunch the next tax sale, that the day before the tax sale, they'll come in and they'll have to pay attorney's fees, they'll have to pay all kinds of other fees. But that's the way they've lived their lives, to wait till the last minute to pay. And we don't have the encouragement now of the tax sale hanging over their heads. And sometimes they'll come in and say, well, when's the next tax sale, so I'll know when to pay up. But, and then we have the other group, we have others that'll call in from out of state saying, send me all your delinquent taxes. And fortunately, under the open records law, if they're from out of state, we don't have to send them anything. If they're in state, we don't have a list of all the delinquent ones. But if they want to come in and use our computer, we're happy for them to come in and use a computer, do it themselves. We're not going to do their work for them because we just don't have the staff to do that. To tell everybody, there's a whole lot of folks now that are buying delinquent property, trying to wait that year because you get a 10% interest if you hold it and then it's redeemed. And then if it's not, they fix it up and flip it. So that's a business that goes on a lot that we have to deal with. I guess the other thing that we deal with, we're doing a lot on what they call small estates. Where people come in and they have less than $50,000, and you know, sometimes it's real sad because they won't let them get into mom's apartment to get everything, and they don't need an attorney because it's a small estate. So we spend a lot of time doing that and helping people do that when they're in very difficult times. And I'll do 3 or 4 of those a week. The law on that is changing because they changed it to make it easier, but by making it easier, it made the banks not willing to cooperate. So they're changing it back. We just kept it the same, where we give an order, makes it a lot easier because, and I'm not going to mention the Bank of America by name, but they made it so hard to deal with that we had to cite them into court and threaten to put one of their bank managers in jail because he wouldn't obey our orders. And after we did that, we had them fly in a vice president from Los Angeles, San Francisco, Tampa. They made the guy from Atlanta drive up. And we had a little, and I guess separation of church and state, but we had a little come to Jesus meeting. And after that, they have cooperated much more fully after we threatened to put them in jail.
Sometimes you have to draw a hard line when people just won't do
They're
what
just
they're
so
supposed to
big, they
do.
figured they couldn't be touched.
That's
But,
familiar.
it made for an interesting time. And so we try to keep on top of everything. The laws do change, particularly in estates and in divorces and things like that. Our staff has to keep up with that. And that's where we are in the clerk of master's office. We're excited about moving into the new facility where we can serve the citizens of Sumner County better. We're gonna keep serving them in the way that we can save everybody as much money as we can, particularly the taxpayers. But we do want to keep our employees. We've got a good group of employees who've been there for a long time. When I retire, I feel sorry for the next clerk and master because everybody's in their 50s and they're gonna have to replenish with the new staff. But that'll be for the next clerk and master to handle.
So just to roll up, and thank you for that detail, sir, but just to roll up here, $42,000 difference.
And that's, the vast majority of that is the increase, the 6% increase.
Right, and of that, there's about 30,000, right around $30,000, I think, is the total for the cost of living increase, and that is, I'm just trying to add all these up to make sure these make sense. That's the, on page 48, that's the clerical personnel, part-time personnel, and the clerk and master specifically. Is that right? Is that where that number comes from?
It's broke down on page 83. It's
Oh, yeah,
basically-
that's, I'm just
It's made up
reconciling
of
those
two
two.
things, all their changes, it's the cost of living and
Yep.
then $2,880 for additional overtime, that's the two things together.
Got
And
it.
then under his non-salary, it's predominantly a access computer for the public in the new
Yep,
courthouse.
I saw it.
And then do the, almost electronic /
Yeah,
online.
the electronics, yes, sir.
That's the two things, his other increase, and then dues membership.
Any other questions?
One of the things that we've done right now, you may have seen in the governor's budget, he put $75 million in for E5. We're way ahead of the curve. They're coming to us and having us instruct the other counties how to do it.
Can we charge them?
Wish we could, but we really can't. We're trying to make it good for the whole state to where this can be an asset to the state. But we signed a 3-year contract to have a company out of Utah that is doing everybody in the state so far, except the clerk and master's office in Nashville. And they signed a contract where they're paying about $20,000 a year, and we're paying nothing to have the service. And so we've got in on the ground floor, and it's really helping us. And matter of fact, today we've gone to the next level to where we can punch everything in, and everything shows up. But before, what we had to do was we had to get the information from the attorney that's filing it, retype it to enter into our system. Now we're trying to integrate those systems, and as all of you know, with computers, that means everybody at my office is mad at me today, because even though it's supposed to work beautifully, it doesn't. But we'll have it knocked out in another week or two, and it's going to help us more and give us more time to help the people that do come in the office.
Thank you, sir, and I hate to cut you off, but we're just trying to, maybe being draconian here, but there any further questions?
No.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, we're at the EC, we're right on time. Well, and we're a little bit ahead because we picked off a couple more.
They're in the back.
All right. Miss Ashley?
They're on page number 31, and then their salaries are on page 82.
What'd you say, 31 and then what?
I'm sorry,
Oh,
page
82.
82 on your regular agenda, page 31 in the budget document.
Whenever you're ready.
As you all are aware, we timely submitted our budget for the 23-24 year. There were some comments, considerations, concerns. It was not timely. It was. I guess the law director, Mr. Sittler, asserted that it was not properly submitted. We do not agree with that assertion. We do believe it was properly submitted. We're asking you to consider that budget, not the one that is revised by Mr. Loing, the one that we actually submitted. So it's all where you want to start.
I think I had sent an email, just acknowledging that, we were gonna put this one in here, but just asking if
Yes,
you
sir.
would if you would just brief the differences, and so that you could, that way we kind of, compromise on this a little bit, and if you wanna just kind of brief what is difference between, what is
Yes,
different
sir.
between
She
the
wants
two
to
and kind of
pull
step
her-
through it.
We can pull a request on the screen. and make
That's
it
fine,
easy.
we can do that.
Let's go and pull it.
I just, while we're doing it, if you just kind of help point out like,
Okay.
what the big major changes are.
Yes, sir. Well, you guys inherited a budget that was deficient from day one. When we submitted our budget last year, we're a very unique department in that one budget year for the county, we have a 2-election cycle. The following year, we have a 1-election cycle. And so every other year, our budget is just up and down. It spikes up and down. Last year, for some reason, that county commission, that budget committee decided to reduce our budget by $297,000, which put us back to a 1-election cycle budget. We knew we were gonna be in the deficit. Mr. Lawling might be able to speak to that. He was here then when that happened. I believe Mr. Becker as well. But, so we knew in September, we knew that wasn't a sufficient budget. We knew in September, October of last year, we didn't even have enough money to pay our poll workers for the November election. So when you say to go back and tell the differences, it's really kind of hard because that budget was inherently flawed to begin with. It was a 2-cycle budget. Now we're back to a 1, but we're back to a 1-cycle budget with a presidential election, which always significantly increases participation. So many of you may not know, I know Mr. Hyde does, and several of you that have been here, the election commission moves the May primary to the March presidential preference primary every 4 years because the state then reimburses the county for those funds. That's why we do that. But like all other grants, you guys fund the money up front. We submit the paperwork to the state, it's then reimbursed, but it doesn't go back into my budget, it goes back into the general fund. And if David is in agreement, that's typically the next fiscal year. We don't typically get it, so we'll spend the money in March of 2024 for the presidential. We'll get all those numbers within, say, 30, 45 days after the election. But by the time the state processes it and we get it back, it's actually gonna be in the next year. So you'll see that money coming out of my budget, but it's actually coming back to the county.
By the most, we can recognize revenue 60 days after the end of the year.
So
Okay.
If they come back more than 60 days, well, we don't do that.
Right.
We're not allowed to.
I just wanted to explain that because it is a little bit different. It's the same way with HAVA dollars, Help America Vote Act dollars. If we have grants, the county basically funds those, and then we submit those to the state, that submits them through the federal government, and they come back, it flows back through us. But this is a unique year. So the budget that, because the budget last year was reduced back to a 1 cycle, it is somewhat comparable to what we've submitted this year, with the exception of what I just explained, that while you will pay that money out for the March presidential, it will be coming back.
I guess what I'm trying to ask is, and we've done this with the other folks,
Yes, sir.
just trying to summarize up, we're trying to get to a dollar amount, but what, the other departments have said, our increases are cost of living, one department had I think the EMS potentially has an employee that they're gonna be adding back in, we're not 100% sure, like, that's kind of the level that I'm looking at here, like, what personnel are you looking to add? And that's kind of the.
We've asked for an additional employee each year for the past 7 or 8 years, and it's been denied, and as I understand, it was denied this year as well. So we supplement those positions with part-time people. The hours end up being the same, but it saves the county in that you don't pay benefits and retirement and insurance and that kind of thing. So if that employee's already denied, then there's no increase requested there.
I don't know that anything's been denied, we haven't made any decision on it.
Is that not what we sent out, that no additional staff was gonna be added? Did I misunderstand that?
That was general guidance that we
Right,
just put out,
right.
like, so, for example, we put out general guidance for, we would probably be targeting 2 or 3% increase, but everybody, came back with their 6%.
Right.
General guidance doesn't mean, we've made no decision on anything, that was just guidance to kind of
Right.
level set on
So-
what we were expecting to see.
So that was included, but that would be the only increase as an additional staff member was my point, other than whatever you guys decide ultimately is the COLA.
And there's no increase in part-time?
No. It wasn't properly funded for the 2022-23 year. That's why we came before you guys. If you remember back, the first time you all had just been seated in September, we came back in October, knew we didn't have the money to pay the poll workers for the November election. Mr. Hyde stepped up and said, hey, we're gonna pay, whatever that is. And you did, you funded that. but we've come back to you each month for the part-time, obviously not for this budget year, but for the deficit from the 2022-23 year.
Have we-
There's also
Okay.
cycles in this department of 1 and 2.
Yeah, I totally get
The
that.
primary, so last year and this year will vary on that significantly. We can show you one that was on the last cycle, but I can't tell you what's changed in the last cycle. We do have a lot of historical out there, so you can see.
Right, but you'd actually have to go back to the last presidential, which is now 4 years.
Well, we can show them that, but we don't
Right.
know what's changed since then, though.
Right.
But I can show them that would be helpful. But this is her actual request for 1994, for her. There's some notes out here for like, CBC.
Okay,
So
so
that
the,
may be what they want you to go over.
okay, so the only, the two issues, obviously, one is the move to the TRC, the former Tennessee Rehabilitation Center. Those funds are denoted as TRC. And then the CBC is the Convenient Boat Centers. That was the implementation of those. We've been working on that for about 4 years. We were approved through the state legislature, which is what is required. We were approved through the state election commission, the state office. We've been working towards that. And I hate to say this, COVID hit and it changed everything. We didn't get to implement it. And then because of that, the census data was so late, it was about 6.5 months after when we normally get it. There was no way we could implement it for 2022.
But we
Yes,
did,
sir.
we didn't implement it, but we did spend money.
No, sir. I mean, nothing, we haven't done any of the the mailing notifications, the consolidations, none of that. We had a plan, but none of that was implemented.
Were there funds appropriated for convenience voting previously?
Yes, we've submitted it every year.
And did you receive those?
Not to that amount, at that point it was put in capital outlays. Because it was just gonna be that 1 year, or it might have gone across 2 budget years, but that would have been a one-time cost. So that's where you'll see, you won't see it in these numbers. That's why we tried to break it out for you, to show you, the lump sum. If you wanted to come back to our actual budget dollars, excluding the convenient boat centers and excluding the move to the TRC, that's why we broke those out on the right-hand side. And if you do that, you'll see our budget is within $10,000 of a one-cycle budget that we submitted last time. And the increase is basically, we're under the increases due to COLA, the increases of the adjustments for the payroll, for the staff.
So this is a one election
Cycle.
cycle.
But it's a
But
presidential.
we'll get reimbursed for it.
Yes, sir, but it'll be in the next fiscal year, and
Correct.
that never comes back into my budget, so you guys will see it come back into the general fund. So it'll come out of my budget, but comes back into am I correct in
Thank
saying
you, yes,
that?
I think it was 90-some thousand last time.
It was a little over 100.
So, yeah, we can click on there and see, is it gonna be comparable this time with the?
Yes, I mean, you know, we always
Show
anticipate
the revenue.
with what's going on right now in the climate, and of course, since 2020, it's been very contentious. We assume and presume there'll be an increased participation, which of course would require, the locations we don't pay for in the county. We'll have all the equipment and the machinery necessary, so the only difference would be additional poll workers to staff that additional participation by the voters,
Presidential preference.
assuming it goes up, and that's what we're making that assumption.
I think it's called presidential preference. What it comes in.
PPP, presidential preference primary.
Yeah, well, I don't know what we've got language because
It may be state or HAVA. It's actually federal funds, but they flow through the state up and
I
back
think
through the
that's
state.
probably correct, because I think the time before maybe in the 90s, or 80s,
Right.
it was over time. But either way, the revenue's not in this budget either, because until, I didn't, none,
Correct.
since there's any kind of question on any revenue, I will not include it until we all discuss it, so it's
Got it.
another one for that one too, so revenue.
David, we don't have this
And what?
spreadsheet, right?
We can print that for you for tomorrow when you're doing your actual adjustments, but here today, we have it on the screen from Miss Ashley, and I wasn't sure if she'd bring something totally different, so I didn't want to pass out all these different sheets.
Just what we submitted is what we're asking you to consider.
And we'll print those for you tomorrow. I didn't want to take, if you brought something, a different
No, sir.
presentation, I didn't want to print those for today, like.
No, sir.
Because all we've got today for you is what's in the budget and the salary sheets, but we can bring you whatever she talks about today.
Those are the only two issues, is the convenient boat centers, that are outside what would be normal and move into the TRC.
And you may want to ask Ms. Ashley if she can to send us something this evening, what she's thinking of presidential primary money. I know you want to.
We'll just do the projections based on the numbers given by the state. And
It was 100 last time.
right. If
So
you
we
just
just say
assume-
105 is probably.
Exactly. Well, and everything else, now, having said that, the participation increases, the poll worker, money increases, but additionally, everything in the world, cost-wise, has increased,
105 versus.
yeah, 3 to 5%, I think would be just on general cost of overall materials, printing, postage, so forth. So-
What's the grand total on that sheet?
Oh, no, the sheet she's got. The one Ms. Ashley.
The one that's on the screen?
Her sheet.
Oh, yeah, her
Her
sheet.
sheet or the one we got in there now?
The one, that her sheet.
Her sheet. Okay, go back over to the next sheet.
Because we're right at a million, right?
I think the problem is.
You have to unlock it, I bet.
Yeah, we can't do that. We can send it to.
We do it because people ask me to get in the wrong.
I understand,
We gotta help you guys out.
no, I understand, but we can't
We like, people
modify
ask me to
that.
get in the wrong field, yeah.
You have to have a password to make the column wider.
Everybody close their eyes.
I don't think I'm sure.
Well, it's not even, we're not even concerned. We just do that to help out the departments that get people who actually get it wrong.
Yeah, what's the total?
We had one year where somebody entered them all in the wrong field back then.
Yeah.
You can get it,
The
sideways.
total is,
And that's not been verified for like benefits, so it's probably slightly more.
Right, we have to get all those numbers from you, just to that point, the COLA numbers, benefits, social
And-
security, all of that comes directly from finance.
So, but
We-
that's-
We do our best guess.
that's a rough estimate of the difference.
The 1.3 versus the 975, which is about.
But if you'll notice here, here's what's attributable to the TRC move, and here's what's attributable to the convenient vote centers. Now, we included all of that in this year's budget, but you guys, it will actually, could potentially spread over 2 of your
So,
budget years.
so a little, so 95.
So that's why it was put capital before.
What's the 255 and 25? It's your, what was that, what's left, I'm sorry. I don't know. But no, I'm sorry. We've got the notes down here, TRC and stuff, is that in a line or is that something you may need?
We just broke it out for you in that explanation.
Oh, that's
So
a sub-
so that you can see if that 1,279,000, those two numbers and combined is 12,888. That's what those two numbers combined total out of the 1,279,000, if that makes sense.
So that 1,279 includes.
Yes, sir.
The 94 and the 2.
Yes, sir. So if you take that out, we're at 962,405.
Okay.
Which is $10,000 less than our previous budget. But depending on what happens with the COLA, whatever number you guys eventually land on, but we're within $10,000.
And then also you're gonna have 105 of revenue added in, whatever you do. Talked about that. I'm not sure if we'll hit this next year budget. or not.
I don't think we've ever received it by June 30.
So it probably won't, no, you know it's coming, but it won't come.
Yeah, no, but we shouldn't,
Right.
we shouldn't assume it.
Well, the problem is, this is what happens, she does her election, which is in.
March.
March, you gotta think that's toward the end of the year, time she gathers her data, you're talking May or June, they get state, it takes them 30, 60 days.
Yeah.
If it's not in our hands by August 31st, we can't recognize it.
No, I get it.
It's out there, but we just can't pull it back into
Totally
the
get it.
budget.
We know what the number is, but it's just
That's
not. Okay.
That's why.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right. Now, let's see, we did billing codes, I guess we're at IT. What pages are we on, David?
And Beth wanted to point out something, out of all the departments, and he's brand new, he's the one that did the best job of getting all these sheets together. Wanted to give a hand
Thank you.
up for somebody. Perfect.
He's the only one that did it absolutely correct.
Perfect.
Yes.
I just know.
Oh, man, just slide that in
We
there.
like to give anybody things good, because we like to aggravate the crap out of them and get mad at so. Let me tell you,
Yeah,
he's on page number 43, and he's also got some stuff on page probably 97 and 98. in his report.
86.
And then page 86 in your document
Okay.
for the salaries. And he did, to tell you, that is one of the increase for the new building. He did ask for another IT staff for the new courthouse / justice center.
Other than the COLA, that's been the only increase in our salary budget. And as many of you may know, part of that, it's got to do with the courthouse, but we've also taken on the Sumner County Highway Department. That's under our umbrella now. We've talked with interim chief, Mr. Paz. He's interested in joining us as far as domain is concerned for Sumner County. So again, that's going to bring in that many more employees over to us to take care of.
So I do have a question on that. So
Yes, sir.
you're requesting to add one employee for, under your department. I noticed other departments, a couple of them had sheriff in, particularly had requests for IT personnel.
Yep.
So, I mean,
The courthouse is supposed to be done by, they're currently doing the courthouse, but the understanding with the original resolution and with the construction of the new Justice Center was supposed to go under county IT. Because
so I guess this is, so
They're actually.
I understand that your scope, I mean, I guess I'm trying to figure out like where your scope begins and ends. Like I understand that's gonna be entirely different from, you know, some of the IT, services that would be done by like the ECC.
We're there too.
Okay.
And 911.
Correct.
But they've got them, this building, the new Justice Center, now you got highway, and then you've got several other buildings.
Pretty much everything in the county other than the sheriff's.
So I don't
office will
wanna,
be
I mean,
under
this is gonna be, and I hate to put you on the spot on this kind of contentious,
Understand.
it's not, it won't be contentious, but do you believe that with the addition of that one personnel, that you could service the needs, the full IT infrastructure, support, maintenance needs of, the new jail, sheriff, highway, you know, existing efforts with the, EMA,
We can
ECD?
service everything but the jail. We're not in the sheriff's office. That's totally different.
Is that because they won't let you in or because you don't have the staff?
I can't speak to that. It's
Okay.
just, we've
Not
never
my-
been
my
there,
question.
so I don't know.
So okay, so that maybe just be a question for the sheriff.
Well, they have an IT person at the sheriff's department, but they'd also outsource a lot of the stuff, we've noticed.
Yeah.
Significant outsourcing through the sheriff /
I mean, that's, all right, so that's a question for the sheriff then.
Absolutely.
I've got it.
Sheriff Weatherford or.
He's actually-
Just a comment though, to your
Eric's
question
right there,
though,
he can answer that question.
well, I just wanna make sure, I think we need to organize it as such that, you know, cause there are other, you know, it's been talked about, you know, IT personnel or IT in these other departments. And so, in my company, it's called, they call that shadow IT, so it's, you know, got all these other IT areas, and I wanna make sure that it's centralized.
Right.
All within your group.
As
And
much
we can
as
talk
we
about,
can.
to me, the jail too, but we can talk about that separate, it's probably a bigger topic, but I just wanna make sure that we're not sort of double counting our needs, if that makes
100%.
sense.
Something may have changed, but my initial understanding through the new Justice Center is it was going over, other than like maybe security on the doors, was going over to this IT.
Yeah, nothing's changed. We're on in constant contact.
No,
with
the old
Catherine.
courthouse is no longer gonna be an issue. It's-
Yeah, but-
it's gone.
But there were some IT related positions
For the old courthouse, they didn't do the old courthouse.
for the new courthouse.
We
Yeah.
do some, yes.
Some, but not all
But the
of it.
problem at the old courthouse is they're still on state network, but they will no longer be on that state network when they come to the new courthouse.
But I'm talking about the new courthouse, the numbers we looked earlier today about the new courthouse.
That was the one IT staff for this, not nothing.
It's the same
Yeah,
staff.
the one the sheriff's asking for is nothing to do with the cost of new buildings, my
Okay.
understanding.
And then Mr. Guthrie had something about an IT.
He's wanting one because they actually have some specialized software for like 911 addressing and stuff. It's not network, what you would think is network computer people, it's more for their applications over there. And
But
you
I
can
mean,
ask them, that's my understanding.
that's
Yes, sir.
actually-
B911 has always had an internal IT person just because of severity of things that can arise from there. They're a 24/7 operation, so, you know, with us being as small as we are, we're not always available to jump right on that. We are now because of the lack of staff that they have, but I know that he's looking to restore someone back at that facility that he can use.
And part of it's for the applications. too.
Correct.
There's several, where the addressing application, all that, they're doing that.
He wants someone other than myself to know that system because it's a very,
I got
very
more
complicated.
Well, that was his
system to
backup,
understand.
that was his comment about having a backup.
Go ahead.
So when you say you're taking over highway, so did highway have their own independent IT person as of when?
Yes, they have, ever since I started, they've always had one.
They have a third party they were outsourcing, but they actually did not have an email server either. So basically they weren't doing it.
So, but even though it was being funded for the highway department for IT as part of data processing, has that now been pulled back out of their budget and going reallocated to
He's
that?
still got that where he pays them for that software for their program.
Yeah, we're still working with Toby on
They
getting all
they
this
really didn't
aligned.
have any infrastructure, what they did was he built it for them.
But I mean, you're saying they did have an, I guess it's in their budget, if I'm not mistaken, as far as having.
My
that.
understanding, yes, sir.
So have we pulled that back out of their budget? I guess, you know,
No, because as the budget came out in July 1st, Judy was still there. So, and Mr. Ellis did take over in September, so that was already.
but this just happened in the past year where you guys started taking over their IT, correct?
Yes, once Mr. Ellis took over, that's when we were fully over there for them, taking care of everything.
Before that, they didn't really have any exchange service. They didn't have nothing really other than
No.
a few PCs, and they had a third party that made take care of
So
software.
EMS, they have their own IT? No,
EMS, no.
because they're on their own domains or everything else.
Correct, yes.
All
No,
right.
but we are still somewhat over the architecture there as far as the infrastructure is concerned. There is a tieback to us through the Metro Lead connection, but the process of bringing them into our domain had been started previously, and then it was dropped. And I'm not sure why, I can't speak to that, but in my speakings with the new interim chief, he's fully on board with us coming in, getting their infrastructure updated.
I think it shouldn't have been dropped. I think it should have kept.
So-
Absolutely.
So, but you guys are now still managing the EMS, it's just literally the sheriff is the only thing that's really not happening right now.
Well, an
And there's
ECD.
Or the ECD.
Something else that you all should
Wait,
know,
that's
and
a
he hasn't
contractor.
mentioned it, but
Well,
last
yeah,
year,
but-
was it last year when they went and hired Rockport? How much was that Rockport contract?
If it would have been paid out, it would have been $360,000.
They went and added a Rockport contract for $360,000, it's now been eliminated. That's eliminated.
Correct. Yes, sir. That's no longer with
We will
us.
make sure you guys- That's why this budget is down. They were, before, I guess you took over, came in, we were outsourcing a significant portion of Rockport for $360,000.
Yes.
That's all been eliminated. That's why this budget with the new staff is still down, because that contract's ended. Now, also, ECC pays for $100,000 of that, is that correct?
ECD, yes.
ECD pays for about 100, but you're still netting a $260,000 contract out here.
Yeah, so we were just having kind of a sidebar on that. So ECD, now I'm going back to that, how that, so
They're paying us for support.
they are paying us for support. Are they paying for your support or are they paying?
They're paying for $40,000 toward this
Yeah.
department.
Okay,
It's not
got
to
it,
us.
So
got it.
what happened last year is they came in and during the year, was it last year, or the year before, I guess, they came in and said they needed right course, probably last year, was it 360 or 330?
360, I think. but it-
$360,000, so they needed this contract for support due to ECD. ECD agreed to pay $100,000 of it. This year, we dropped the contract, they've agreed to pay us $40 for support for IT and for utilities.
Got it.
It's a flat amount. But the whole $360, none of that has been dropped out of this budget because with their internal staff, they've determined it's probably better for them to handle it and they can handle it.
Absolutely.
So it's all just went away.
Got it.
That's why the budget shows a negative 77 even with the new employee and cost of living and everything like that. And I think you're also putting here the increase in the data lines too, which is needed.
Yes.
We got a 300 meg line coming into this building, it's a real issue. You know,
Yeah.
most people have a 300 meg line at their house.
I mean, as some of you may know, we talked in October about the DR project. We're working on it. We've got that up and running. We're having replication problems, and it all boils down to our Comcast connection. They're extremely slow for a business, 300 meg up, 300 meg down. And we're in talks with Comcast now. They're supposed to be, I think there's a meeting tomorrow. They're coming to my office to look at solutions for that because we cannot replicate properly to the DR, and we've got to get that fixed.
And we're having issues and stuff we're trying to operate too, I think.
Yeah, internally too, we're having issues as far as slowness on the servers.
Nobody has, not hardly anybody has a 300 meg at your house now yet.
Yeah, yeah.
We continue to
That's not
grow.
We're
much.
running that on a
Yeah.
huge database.
That's not
So they're
much.
trying to snapshot a database across the 300 meg line to
Yeah.
back it up
Yeah.
from here. And the database is huge, so it's causing all kinds of.
As we have grown,
issues.
that's one thing that was just overlooked, I think, by
Yeah.
previous people, so we're trying to get that.
And that's in here too with the, when they took out those other contracts, you still got an
Got it.
increase.
Absolutely. And we've already accounted that for that in our data line, so if there is an increase.
Any other questions for IT?
Well, no. They're capitalized for you.
Oh, yeah, we need to do
Yeah,
capital.
we did have some
We hadn't done that.
97 and 8, and there's a couple changes that will need to be made, and it's nothing that they've done, but this is kind of, and I highlighted one of them in there.
And so,
Software and plan.
The first one says data processing services, that's actually to complete the rest of the Munis implementation. We've had that out there a couple of years, we've got a PO out. The issue that we've got a concern now is we're no longer allowed to capitalize software. So we're kind of concerned that that's actually in the capital projects budget. Number 2.
Wait, say that again?
Well, the thing is, in the past, we could capitalize, but this is a capital projects fund, we could capitalize
Right.
software. With the new standards 96 that came out this year, the way that stands, we cannot capitalize that software anymore. So we're probably gonna need to
So
look
we're-
at that pretty closely and see if it needs to be moved over. to
Can't use
general.
software as far as capital projects?
Should be.
Any software?
Can't capitalize it. Unless it's like in the development stage, it's kind of the old FASB statements. I mean, it's in the-
So if you're buying like an initial license for like financial software, can't,
We did in the past, but after it's up and running, you can't capitalize anything else. So we've got the first
Oh.
module running, and we're still implementing other modules. And
I see. So
Yeah,
you-
so basically, we had to all
okay.
do it all at the same time. So your preliminary design, you can't count that in, like FASB. You can't count the preliminary design. You could count the implementation in there, but after you've got the modules up and going, you can't count anything after that. Well, Munis is up and going, so we can't count those anymore. They had GASB 96 that became effective this year, and it basically took those old FASB rules. In the past, I was capitalizing because it wasn't clear. We were allowed to. This year, they made it clear I'm not allowed to do that anymore. So we just kind of- But that's something to discuss later, and then the other 92,000 is for. That is for actual servers. Is that the servers code? That's for your actual servers, they are capitalizable. We put those in every year because we have well over 100 and some virtual servers now.
It's not that many now, I think we're 58.
We come with that now.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've been able to combine a few things.
Either we got 58 virtual servers, so we do need to keep a regular replacement schedule on those. So that's kind of what that money's for, as they break down therapy. And then down here on the other one, software, that is for, I forget what the license is called, it's a Citrix, maybe, Meraki. We do need those Meraki licenses with the same issue. We used to buy them because they were 3 years license, and we would stick them in there, but the same concern is we don't, is that a 1 year license?
3.
The 3. Probably by most, you can capitalize 2 of those, but it's multi-years. Anything that's capital generally over 2 years.
so could we, I mean, I'm guessing we just moved that over as recurring?
That's what I think we need to
Yeah.
do. We need to look at the pennies in it, so maybe move a few partial pennies
Yeah.
back to the general, put some of this stuff over the general.
Okay.
Pull it out of capital. It's not that there's a question of the need, it's a question of how.
No, I get it, like where the bucket comes from.
And then I see what else you got here. They have the phone system upgrades. We want to talk about that one.
Well, as many of you may know, just this past couple of days, trying to call in here can be in trouble sometimes.
Very old. It was old when I got here in 09.
Yeah, we are still on copper here in this building, and it's, you know,
The system was considered outdated and old when I got here 15 years ago. We're still using it.
Yeah.
So it's a regular, reoccurring problem, and now with the cost going down on voice over IP, I think that's probably where we're at.
Absolutely.
Bring that line up, voice over IP, and get rid of the system pretty much. And then like-
yes. And that's also gonna help as far as our overhead. That will actually drop our monthly bill down a little over $2,000 a month.
Okay.
Just by going to these voice over IPs. Now, of course, you got the upfront cost you're gonna be out of. But if, when we sit down and look at numbers, I think the first year, we should break even as far as paying for everything, as far as what we were saving and get into the actual savings of going that route.
So it's 150,000 upfront and 2,000 a month. I don't see how you get that done in 1 year. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I'm just,
Right.
I don't think.
Well, the 150,000 is just a number we threw out because we weren't sure what route we were gonna take. Right now, I think we're looking at probably 30,000 is what we're gonna be out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, yes.
That's a big
I mean,
difference.
We shoot high because we don't know which route we're gonna take, but of course, when we start getting to it and look at the numbers, that's what we're coming out at. And we also looked at this based on TJC. They're using a voice
Yeah,
over
there you go.
IP system. They got roughly 35 users, and they have great service, never down. And that's part of what pushed us to look into this as far as Comcast was concerned.
Got it.
Who was it that you were talking about? Has that system?
TJC, the Transitional Justice Center.
You said you think 30 is good?
Yes, sir. Unless there's anything that we're overlooking that may involve the equipment. And I'm also accounting for possibly additional cabling as well.
So that would
2
be
years
for
anyway.
The actual phones in the system sale thing that are.
Yes. Right now, it looks like the actual phones are gonna run between $10 to $15 per person. But again, until we actually sat down and started really crunching the numbers of who we decide to go with, because we've talked to Ring, Comcast, AT&T, we're still waiting to hear back on some of those, so.
So kind of the same thing, if you get a reasonable estimate on one of these, you could actually amend them here if it did come back. Easier than having a really high estimate.
Well,
I mean, you could amend it both ways.
If you went
I mean-
copper, you're gonna be.
I mean, I get the idea of going higher
Or
at the
you could go with
beginning.
50 and.
I get it.
you know, But
Yeah.
150 to 30 is kind of a really.
That's a big range. We may have,
But he's thinking 30 and he's.
yeah.
he's
We
really
can still give you
conservative on
some,
the
we can
numbers.
still give you some cushion.
Because we do run into problems with, we still get a lot of politics.
I'm pretty comfortable with it. I mean, at this point in the game, and what we've talked about, if you dropped that to 50,000, I'm comfortable with that.
Robert, if we recable, are we gonna get rid of the obsolete stuff?
Absolutely.
Good.
And some of the recabling won't be for every floor. We already are, we have voiceover in some parts of the building. It's just the other parts we'll have to double up on and get those ran. And it would have to be a professional run.
They get rid of that old T1 line, that we're paying so much money for.
Yes, that's
So
what.
we're basically going to up to a gigabit here, and then we'll do voiceover IP on that.
That's correct. And that will enable, and that still enables a 4-digit dial into our other locations as well. We made sure that was still correct.
And then in the county bills where that fund's paid, so that'll help us in that.
This is what we're looking at for the courthouse, us, and anyone else that's maybe looking at changing over.
Those old T1 lines are expensive considering. what
Very
they are.
expensive,
They're
yes.
not really good, I mean, they're old technology, and they're very expensive. That's what this phone is using,
Right
on
now.
T1 line.
When everything's added together, it's over $4,000. And this is gonna be a little over $2,000.
So you're gonna lose about 2,000 a month.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Yeah, have a good day.
You too.
Richard's 11:30, but the sheriff's here. You wanna do the sheriff first one?
We can do sheriff.
Because these is not till 11:30, you know, to get him, he's only got 15 minutes, I'd give the sheriff more time for him to do. Or Mr. Craddock, whichever one you call. The sheriff's here, but.
We couldn't see him. He's like a ninja back there.
Come on, sorry, the sheriff is on page 52, is capital 98, and then in your agenda pages 88 through 97 for sheriff.
Yes.
That's where now he's got
And this does include 50% of the ARPA being moved back into the sheriff's. So that's one reason the number, and we can give you that number if I have that caution.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm here.
Got any more?
You got it.
Anyway, we see.
All right. Good morning. So, obviously, on the sheriff's office budget, we did request increase in several items. I think probably we can just start with the IT position that we talked about just a second here.
You want us to go to salary sheet first? or just do-
Wherever you guys want to start.
Yeah, let's do the salary sheet first. Let's do those, because that's where I think where the
Which are
questions
on
are gonna
page-
come.
They're in your agenda, page 88 through 97, but we'll also put them on the screen. Anything that says, like you got the cost of living, anything that says additional requests is where you'll see new positions or raises or anything outside. This middle ARPA adjustment is that 50% of the ARPA, and it's got built in there too. So probably what do is scroll down to yellow first.
Explain why some of those are black.
Oh, yeah, on the sheriff's department, the black means one of two things. One, it's like the sheriff, he wasn't eligible for ARPA, and or all the new employees that have hired after a certain date, the sheriff's department was not eligible for ARPA. So, I think it was July 1, 2022. Yeah. So they're blacked out.
All right, deputy positions. We're asking for 5 new patrol deputies, and that's simply just to meet the needs of the citizens, right? We are, I hate to say this, but we are literally one disaster away from being strained. The windstorm that just happened a few months ago, not a huge incident, right? But it strained us so bad that I was in the middle of New Hope Road directing traffic at a tree. I mean, our guys are strained to the max. We really need additional deputy positions in the patrol division to help with that, just to help answer calls and do the basics.
There's a note on that.
So-
How did you determine, is it 5? What, how did you come up with the number 5?
Honestly, in my mind, I thought, where's the need, where we're not living, how I organize, right?
It's 88.
I can honestly tell you that we need 10 or 15, it's not realistic, right? Me getting 5 people hired and trained in the next fiscal year and on the road answering calls is probably about all I can do.
Do you have empty positions right now?
Do we have empty deputy positions?
Empty deputy
No, sir.
positions? You have no empty deputy positions at all?
We have conditional offers out for everything on deputy. We have one, the guy that we're waiting on, who's getting out of the Army and coming to work for us as a deputy.
So, but you are at 100% capacity?
Yes, sir.
The
Okay.
only place we've got any vacancies I'm aware of is the
Corrections.
correction officers right now.
We're gonna have one in clerical, there's a retirement coming up, and then there'll be some transition for that, but as of right now.
But in terms of patrol, you're at 100%? Okay.
sir.
And this one right here is one that started out as a correction officer, and they're going to bring his pay in line with same years of service for patrol officers. And most of theirs kind of have a structure because they're under civil service, or somewhat structure based on what you do. That was just the movement from one to the other, call it pay, we moved it to overtime.
Correct, yes.
We reclassified it properly and just got the salary line.
So in your presentation, you'll see that our current structure for day shift supervision is 1 lieutenant for both shifts and then 1 sergeant on each shift. So that creates a little bit of an issue if one of the supervisors is sick, one of them is out, there's a lapse in supervision, right? Span of control is supposed to be 1 to 7, according to Northwestern. We're not at that, and we're not asking to get to that. But we are asking for an additional lieutenant. That way we can have a lieutenant and a sergeant on each shift that everybody reports to. It just makes the chain of command much easier. IT assistant, that's the one we just talked about. So one of the big differences between county IT here and sheriff's office IT is that we have to meet CJIS standards, right? So people that come in and operate on our stuff have to go through a background check or certain firewalls that we can't have access to, right? You can't pipe some of the systems that we have here at this building and have them worked on. So whoever we have has to be in that building, right? An example of that is like NCIC, we run criminal histories and that kind of stuff, that can't float between buildings because of CJIS standards. And I'll give you a great example. So there's, as you all know, we try to leverage technology as much as possible to be efficient. We want to start cell phones for our supervisors. Well, in order to do that and have CJIS information, we have to have a mobile data management plan so that we can push security updates and applications to the phones. That's not common in any other form of government, right? That's all specific to the criminal justice information that we have access to. So there's a reason we have IT people at the sheriff's office. And just to give you a small metric, last year we did about 3,000 help desk tickets. That's not Dwayne doing his primary job is not help desk tickets. His primary job is hardware, software, and network. So when someone needs all of the other things, their passwords messed up, their applications aren't running right, their Citrix server is down, that takes him away from his primary job. That was 3,000 tickets last year.
So is there, if you can assume, is there any reason why if somebody from the IT department obtains the training, necessary training, clearances, certificates, could they service this need if they did that?
Absolutely. The only issue that I would foresee there is that they're not on site. Right, our systems, our servers and stuff are mostly on site. So if they were here in this building and supporting us, it would be a transport back and forth.
But the majority of what you're talking about there is, it seems to be, I mean, I know there might be some back and forth, is handling the help desk tickets. I mean, I have a company right when we were at the help desk.
Yeah.
Help desk is in everywhere from, Louisiana to California.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I believe they have to be CJIS compliant for ECC and E911 already.
So to a certain degree. Yes, the 911 call takers, stuff, they can run criminal histories and driver's license and have access to
The other
CPI.
one, the ones that, because if we had that discussion about the ECC, that my understanding was the ones that are from IT that are actually servicing ECC has to be teachers compliant.
ECC does have an
And their IT staff is going to have to be too.
Correct, that's
So they
why,
are teachers compliant.
that's why Mr. Guthrie is asking for that IT tech guy there,
Right, but I mean, the ones from here, they don't have to be too, is my understanding. Because we had that discussion about 3 or 4 years ago, they became
Yes.
teachers compliant. It was my understanding unless something's changed.
And so one of the first things that I did when I took over as chief is sit down with our IT guy and county IT and say, how can we work together? If you need our help, let's help you. If we need your help, let's be efficient here, right? And nothing against them, but several times we've reached out about re-imaging machines to get them redeployed in different areas, and it's just, they've got so much going on, we've got so much going on. There's really, it's no one's fault, but
No, I know,
the
but-
assistance and the
Was
efficiency is
that
not
with
there.
the previous IT director?
No, that was with the new IT director. The previous IT director and our IT guy didn't get along, which is what prompted the entire meeting. I very clearly told my IT guy, I want us to get along, I want us to work together.
They guys very much.
But
He-
they, you know,
he's great. He's
but,
great. Every time we call, he answers my questions. I've called him several times to think, what do you think about this software? What do you think about this? He's great. It's just simply the staff.
well, I mean, I guess that, I mean, I'm getting that, but I'm like, I'm also, you know, that they've asked for an additional personnel as well, so I'm like, assume for a second that that individual, whoever it is, can be properly certified, get whatever clearances need to be done, complete. Is there so much workload that it's 2 FTEs, or is it one split between? I guess that's the question I've got in my mind.
I think that I have enough workload in our building and with our systems to have a full-time guy.
Can I ask you a question? Right now,
Sure.
we outsource a whole lot of stuff we're doing. If you pull that person, is there a lot of that outsourcing list up here? Because we're looking to know that there's a lot of
Yes.
outsourcing money that we're
So
doing here.
one of the things that we talked about with this guy is him doing the help desk tickets, the simple stuff, the running the cables, the.
We're talking about changing battery backups being outsourced.
Yes, it's,
I mean, it's a lot, that's what we're
right.
looking at.
He is,
Is it gonna help with that?
he is overworked. He has more than enough work on his plate.
And that's the IT director you're talking about?
Yes, our IT guy.
Yeah, that's what we noticed, is just through our office, we're looking at contracts, and there's a lot of outsourcing going on, like, a lot of it.
Yeah.
like, things,
I mean,
everything.
don't get me wrong, if, like, on the business side, if I've got my, you know, I've been there, like, I got my own IT guy, and then the behemoth comes in and wants to gobble you up and all make shared services, I'd fight for it all day long, I totally get the argument, but I mean, it's just an efficiency thing that we're gonna have to figure out.
Absolutely.
What does CJIS stand for?
Criminal Justice Information Systems.
Eric,
Yes, sir.
if you get those 5, you got enough cars?
We're asking for more cars this year. And we'll get to this in just a minute, I'm sure. We are hard up on cars, right? And that's,
Well, then that's the thing, you gotta outfit them, you gotta outfit your personnel.
right. So, yes, right now, we're still waiting on the cars that we ordered last year. COVID has made us, I mean, we can't do anything if they
Building
keep
up
moving, right?
That, those will be on page 9. I mean, my thing is probably go through his salaries and then his
Yeah.
operational, then we'll pop over to his capital, which has his cars, and I think you got a few other things that have to do with it. Yeah, a little bit of equipment, if you think of that.
You say that's on 98?
Same thing, that starting page different because he was a CO officer. Or they started the CO officers, went to patrol officers, and the guys were giving them credit from the day they started CO, so they let them off on their salary.
Right.
You guys give credit for CO officer.
That's all tenure. That we do basically just like.
You basically are including other things.
For the courts, to open the new building and be able to staff it, we need 5 certified deputies.
That's one of the-
That's what we talked about.
Yeah, that's the cost.
I remember
If
you.
you go to far right, that's the total cost of the execution.
Yeah, I think.
That's that number you've seen, that's why they were larger, this is
So-
67.
So I do have another question. I'm going on here, so I'm reading through your analysis. And on the one hand, we're arguing that, and forgive me, I'm that guy. On the one hand, we're arguing that we need a bump because we're 17. On the other hand, we're arguing that we're totally full and that you've got people like in line. So
Well,
I mean, I'm not arguing, I'm not saying necessarily that you're, you know, we can talk about being short, but clearly people are, at the salaries that we're currently at, people are willing to come on board.
I would agree with that in the last fiscal year. And if you'll read the notes, THP is getting, their starting trooper salary is gonna be $63,300. I lost one to THP last year, I've got one right now talking about going to THP. And several more that are waiting to see the outcome of this, right? They're gonna go and, I love the Iowa Patrol, I do. They're great guys, I get along with them really well. They don't go to the They work
I get
traffic
it.
and crashes and escapes, protect the building downtown. So, less risk, less liability, more pay. I anticipate we're gonna lose people. The same thing with Homeland Security, they're fixing to hire 100 agents in the state of Tennessee. Every county's gonna give one, and they're gonna start them out at $75,000.
That's federal money.
I'm not asking to match that this year, I'm not, but I am asking for our guys to get a significant 6% COLA raise is what we asked for. And I don't think that's unreasonable.
Well, I mean, the market will dictate at some juncture what's reasonable, what's not, right?
Right.
If you go too low, then people leave, and if, you know, I'm just saying, like, right now, I'm looking at this, and it doesn't scream to me that we're bleeding at the seams. I get your argument, that
Yes.
like, you know, when we see this going forward, you know, because here's the other thing we have to account for. In terms of just percentage raises, some people have had, and I know we're competing against the other counties, but, you know, some people in the county have had effectively, you know, 8, 10, 12% increases or more because of, we're, you know, baking in the ARPA money. And I'm not saying we're gonna get rid of that, I'm just saying with that being baked in, you know, we've had some people who've gotten a lot more raises than others, and so if we continue on that trajectory, it starts to look like it breaks the budget. I'm just being totally level.
No, I get it, and that's some of the sheriff and I have talked about in depth, right? We don't want to break the county, that's not what we're asking for here, right? We're simply defending our guys.
No, I get it, y'all are here to, I get it.
To your point about us being full up, I will give all the credit in the room to the sheriff, right? We have a detective who is currently going through the interview process to go to the state. When he told us why he was leaving, it was for his family, he said, this is the best place he's ever worked, right? The morale within our department is genuinely very high. We get people from other agencies around that come there and are like, wow, this is how something's supposed to be run, right? So we do have a good thing going. We just have to keep it going.
Sir, when you take the start pay plus COVID, which I know, Brandon, is it close to other counties? Because we did that salary survey last year, and it was supposed to fix, did it or not?
I think it did, and then Wilson County did their salary supplement fully implemented, so it threw it all off again. Yeah. No, I agree. I think at the time it did.
So at the time it fixed it, but now things.
But now, yeah, now obviously, I mean, the state is fixing to pay a guy $63,000 to do what a trooper does. And they have a place, don't get me wrong, they have a place, but they don't go to the domestics. You know what I mean? Their risk and liability, in my opinion, is much less than a deputy.
Does Tennessee have a Bearcat? I'm kidding. I had to.
I appreciate you breaking the tension.
They got an Abrams. They're good.
Yeah.
Put that in
Okay, so, we talked about these guys, this is for the new courthouse in order to open it,
Yeah.
staff it. And I'm gonna be honest with you, the sheriff and I walked through with Judge Thompson and kind of visualized this is where they'll be, this is what's gonna happen, this is how we think. We think 5 is the absolute bare minimum that we can do and open the courthouse. I don't see us being able to do it for any less than that.
Now, when is the court, do we know when the courthouse?
January is what I'm told.
Is this
They're
still on
hoping to-
track?
Yes.
For
Yeah.
January?
Yeah, the parking
Yeah,
structure's
because
not
we need
put
to
the.
get.
Okay.
Because we got.
So it would be a full year, it would be, you need them.
Well, I would hire them now and get them trained. That way, the day the courthouse opens, they're ready to go.
Because you need 5 patrol, 5 court.
That's what we're asking for, yes, sir.
So 10 total.
10 total days.
There's also the 42 up here to kind of explain what that is. That's where their court officers used to make less than a certified deputy, and they're wanting to pay their court officers the same as certified deputy, and that's what it takes to make them all the same.
So there's an attorney general opinion that says that a bailiff in a court has to be a certified police officer. For years, we've operated with armed security guards that we train, put them in blue shirts, and put them in the courts. The Attorney General's opinion basically says that we were wrong, right? So what we're asking for with that is the money to bring them up to certified deputy pay. They're not gonna get that automatically, right? They're gonna have to go through the police academy, go through the training, and be a certified guy, and then we have the ability to pay them as a certified guy. So it would be an increase from their armed guard salary to a certified position.
Is there, of course, I know with the new courthouse, but are there not any deputies at the old courthouse that can just show up at the new courthouse?
Yes.
But that's all these folks.
So you're saying that when you said bare minimum 5, it's bare minimum 5 on top of what we already have?
Correct.
And it takes about 6 months to train them?
It will take about, it depends on if they're already post-certified or not. Just to your point, we've already had judges come to us and ask us for an extra court officer.
Physically bigger.
They are stretched thin already.
More entrances. I mean,
How many are there
I
right
mean,
now?
but that's.
I believe there's 13. Our courthouse is modeled after Rutherford County. They have 28.
13 includes the 5, or that'd be 18?
No, we would be at 18.
And then Rutherford County
That's
has
28.
And we were just having a little sidebar here. I'm assuming this is just pure, it's about square footage.
It's about square footage, it's
And
about
then
the
points of
redesign of
entry.
the structure. We're gonna have inmates transported to the new courthouse and holding cells there. You know, right now, we take them down to the end of the jail and the court hold them there, and they walk to a courtroom and they go back. Now we're gonna have to transport them there, have somebody to watch them while they're in the cells there. There's a.
No, I get it.
I told you so. Mo brought this up 4 or 5 years ago, so it's.
When you buy a big building.
This was
you pay-
discussed as a
it is
point of
what it is.
contention.
It is what it is. I mean, we can't unbuild it,
We
unfortunately.
did bring this issue up, and it was not addressed at the time. That's
We
why
know
it's
that they were budget where they can talk about it on salary. And we'll circle back around to this capital.
Yeah.
And that's on, and you guys have copies of that in this, it'll be easier for you guys to view. In your budget, it's on page 52 for which ones.
So I'm just, one thing's jumping out at me now, but that 111,000 for the lieutenants, that's inclusive of the one that you said you wanted a new lieutenant of patrol?
For the patrol lieutenant, yes.
So that 111 accounts for the 6% COLA across the board, and then you're adding one.
I believe that's the way the spreadsheet was set up.
Okay. Now, are you adding one, or are you moving somebody
Plus
up?
ARPA. Plus ARPA.
Oh, plus, that's right, because we're burning the ARPA off, that's right. Yep.
Because basically the ARPA's been funded, but it's been by the federals now. so
Yeah,
one of
yeah,
the
yeah,
individual
yeah.
Budgets coming out of. property taxes.
They did what the comptroller said don't do.
Yeah. So we asked for increases in several lines, right? If you guys have on the 6 apps that you want to cover, you want to cover them all?
Well, I mean, I just want to jump through the things that jump out at me. I mean, anybody else can, but I mean, you know, I was about to say, what about that
So,
300,000?
The 300,000 was put in software last year for a new JMS RMS system. The county is still.
What does that
paying
mean?
Jail management
Oh,
system
okay, got
and
it.
records management system.
Got it.
Where's that?
Page 54, and it says software.
The county and all the law enforcement agencies in it have been vetting new software, right? So I simply am asking to carry that money forward. That way, when the county makes a decision, the sheriff's office can line up with that decision and have the same thing every other law enforcement agency here has.
What's the recurring cost? You know, that's the purchase.
It all depends on which vendor. Every vendor has sent us different maintenance fees. Right now, Central Square, we pay, I don't know the exact figure, I'm sure you do, but the service that we get from them is subpar at best.
So probably what we're talking about right now, that's what I was wondering, because that was a $300,000 amendment like in August or July after the budget. So my question is, you know, it's a $300,000 increase, so we're probably not talking about a permanent increase,
No.
because the software will be significantly less a year.
Right, once we the one that we like, once we purchase it, we've got it. And the only thing we pay is the maintenance.
Well, so here's what I
But,
would.
but you're paying maintenance currently.
You
so-
could-
So it's just one, you know.
Correct.
You know, we had to talk about earlier switching things out. You can capitalize software until you implement it. So not cost of exploring, but he's actually talking about buying.
Buying new.
We can move that 300,000 over to capital take it out of his budget potentially, and then those ones for IT we're worried about,
I
those
mean,
go back over.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I
And
mean,
then next year you'll have the maintenance to deal with, but you won't have this $300,000 chunk. Can you make that pay better?
that's just kind of where we pull it from.
Does that make sense what I'm saying though?
Well, we got a lot more that we have to take it down from capital. To
Eric,
hit those
Just
targets.
the
Yes,
thought process.
all of these line items pertaining to SROs, any of that funding gonna be covered by
A good question.
what the governor just signed?
Well,
We were told the SROs were funded by Tennessee.
so yes, I haven't seen the legislation. All I know is the rumors about how it's going to come out, right? So I don't want to make an
understand.
statement. But allegedly, the state is going to give every school across the country $75,000 for an SRO, or across the state, $75,000 for an SRO.
Per school,
Per school.
per every school or just the middle?
Per every school.
So
Maybe
how,
47.
so how would that work? What,
51.
let's say hypothetically, we were to keep the existing SROs, would you all build a school? I mean, would the state give the funding to the school and then you all would build a school in order to pay for the SRO so you pay it, but you get kind of recoup it, is that?
So no. So what we're hearing is that that is going to come directly through the OCJP grant process and go directly to the county for the sheriff's budget.
Okay, so it goes, so it does, so it comes to the county, to the sheriff, and it
Right.
wouldn't, you're not having to take it from the school?
That's what we were told.
Okay, so it's gonna be net for the school.
Right,
that's just
right
a-
now,
it's just a
we invoice
one-time-
the schools, they send us a check. I think the last one's $212,000.
So the state's gonna, the state's gonna.
Matt, right now,
Permanent.
is nobody knows exactly
Yeah, it's not in-
what the governor's gonna put out.
Capture that money back.
I was at a meeting yesterday with 30 sheriffs, and we have two legislators that have been down there working with the governor after he brought this out, and they still couldn't tell us. They said this, they've talked about this, they've talked about the other hand, and he said, but the way, for the most part, they're gonna let you have 75,000 per school. Now, that's public schools.
Right.
So we do, I mean, Sumner County has a couple of private schools, but there's gonna be money for them if they want to hire their own, but that won't fall under the sheriff.
$7 million.
Uh, But supposedly for the private, 14 million,
For Sumner County?
no, total.
Total state.
And then, 400 million, I think, for everybody across the state and, public schools.
And that's recurring every
Those
year.
are supposed to be
recurring.
So so right now, what are we paying SROs right now?
It depends on their length, but they would start out at 49,820 if we hired one.
So we're gonna have a little difference in there that we could
You got
potentially
benefits.
use.
Well, what's that?
There are
They
more
said
than
it's gonna
that.
give you 75,000 per school,
30%
and it,
Right, it
like
cover
Williamson County, their salaries are higher than ours, and so they, I don't know how close that'll be, but they said we can also use it for buying a car. If, for the counties that are, like one sheriff in there said that he pays his people, he said that would almost furnish 75,000 would almost furnish
So
two.
I had, and this is, and I don't wanna go down this rabbit hole, but we had talked about this, an idea of, and I don't wanna go crazy down here, but could that, I wanna just ask if that, from what you're hearing, the money could potentially be used for this. In a school, in an active shooter situation, you want to overmatch as quickly as you can get it.
Absolutely.
So, if you could use that extra funding to acquire some, train or build some reserve deputies who maybe are already staffed at the school. Because I mean, that, you could train these people over a summer or something like that. And then, you're talking about somebody who's already working in the school, maybe former law enforcement, former military.
From what we're hearing, that won't be allowed.
That won't be allowed.
No, sir.
You couldn't do that.
No, that's what
Not with that
it's gonna be
group.
really, a lot of
It's gonna be
stipulation.
for the SRO stationed at the school.
So you couldn't use it for a reserve
For
deputy
a
station.
class.
That was-
We've already got the SROs, though, we're claiming it towards so the money can be used. Because right now, our SROs are all over benefits way over 75. So if you've got those SROs.
It's still a net
count that toward
savings.
the cost, then we got the net savings.
We could
You can
potentially do that with
whatever.
our own funding if we chose to do
You buy
that.
more cars or.
So when does the
cut
state
costs
kick
or
in?
whatever.
State funding?
That's gonna be
Next.
They said they're hoping that it will, be signed and out by December.
So,
So, I mean, we really don't know till December.
so we need to, we just, I mean, it sounds like we need to roll with what we got. Yeah, we just gotta roll with what, we've gotta continue the inclusion here for now.
And so anybody over 75, we gotta,
Come up with that.
we have to include.
Right now,
difference
you are
in it.
getting some money for the SROs that the school sending us that they get from the state. It is right here in what the original discussion, since we're already paying for SROs, the former commission could they committed, whereas committed money just means you do it by resolution, budget, or however. Because this is a sign. The sign being was done by the budget committee then. This money could be used to cover the existing salaries, but what we've done is we've stuck it in there and then allowed the sheriff's department to buy additional equipment for SROs. But it technically doesn't even have to be assigned, it all can just be went into your fund balance. But that's the decision they decided earlier because they knew SROs are gonna need cars, uniforms, guns, everything like a normal officer. So they let this money out here to kind of help replace some of their stuff. But I wanted to make sure you were aware of that. And I think it was $35,000 per eligible officer that the schools get, so they have been sending it over to us. And they haven't sent us anything this year, but I believe they're going to.
They just did a check, I think it was 212.
Did we already do
I
that?
believe so.
I didn't know if we had any time to put in here or not.
No, it just came last week, I think.
We're pretty confident, so everybody not, probably not.
You say you've been busy?
But either, well, we had to cut off a lot of stuff, we still got to get there, we could.
We may be at time, actually.
Yeah, we picked that up already. We've already picked that up, but that's what I'm saying, the former budget committee / commission, so you use it for equivalent technically, and we just pay for existing salary. So make sure everybody's aware of that, because the money is there.
Yes, we have.
Everybody, early before your time, everybody forgot about it, and I went and told the chief.
Yes, I was confused. So they came out.
No, the former chief deputy forgot about it. The budget committee mentioned the time they were gonna buy equipment, so I signed it.
Right.
And then I went and told him about it.
We gotta be objective.
It's got different lines, for sure.
But it's assigned there based on what the budget committee says. But there's still money assigned there, if you guys want to do the project.
Any other questions on, salary?
With SROs, this is a question I've got. With your budget, I mean, so you don't have any extra SROs, so if a SRO is out sick, there's just no SRO at that school, right?
We have a standing rule that if someone is out sick, we send a supervisor to that school. But you guys all know how Murphy's Law works, right? He's out sick, supervisor's there, well, now he's got another call at another school that he needs to go and help with, right? So
Right.
There is no stopgap, no permanent fill.
So you don't really have a cushion if you got three guys out.
Do they share on the campus, though? Because you know, you got some campuses with 3 schools, so one's out and the supervisor's on there, and the other 2 kind of cover the other.
Yes, they are, especially like the beach campus,
Campus coverage.
with TW Hunter right there, they share responsibilities, but in the event that an incident happens, right, that SRO has what they do with their school. So you can't really count on them to be somewhere, you know what I mean? Especially on a campus like that, because if it happened at Beach, TW Hunter SRO is locking his stuff down, making sure no one's coming in his building.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But there is somebody on the campus.
There is somebody on the campus.
And they do try to help with all the school.
Any other questions for us?
Not on salary, I think we're on capital projects.
And that is on page number 98 on your hard doc, and that's up there right now. And I believe unless I'm mistaken, and there's a pink item I was gonna mention, there's one that says building improvement, that's where you buy, plumbing parts. And I talked to the mayor, that needs to be moved over to the courthouse and jail maintenance, because that's not capitalized. Right. And you guys, they said you needed $100,000 for plumbing parts, but it
The
can't.
valves.
But it can't be, we don't capitalize them, so they can't be, so they've been moved over to courthouse and jail maintenance funding. And the mayor talked about that a while back, so it's not been delivered or anything of that nature.
I think the big thing in capital you guys are gonna see is the cars. We went to the current vendor who's got the state contract, said if we bought a car right now today, what would it cost us? We used that number, and there's, the state contract for next year could be less than that. But if we were gonna buy it today, that's what it would be. And so we budgeted for 20 cars.
How many do you typically get new in a year?
Normally 13, 14, 15, something like that. I told you a minute ago, we're pretty hard on cars, right? We've got some ordered that still haven't come in. And those cars are needed to replace the current cars. I've got an SRO right now in school. It doesn't sound like a lot, my personal truck has 180,000 miles on it, and I'll run it until it dies. But for a guy who's responding to an emergency in a car that's been driven hard for 150, 160,000 miles, it's at the end of its life. And we have several of those that need to be replaced.
You said that was 13 hours, so
Which one?
The 2223 was all 13.
Yes, I think it's 13.
Can you make that work?
13 cars and then a jail, or a mental health transport van, but that was off of the grant.
Well, I don't think it was somewhere.
Yeah.
Eric, when I was doing my study on air conditioning equipment, I went down to Odom's Bend where the maintenance department is. Those guys are lacking in some fairly inexpensive equipment. Would that assist in the car purchase? I mean, there was a
So
bunch of.
I actually put some of that equipment in there. I'm sure you're talking about like a lift and a brake lathe, stuff that helps us maintain our equipment.
Mhm.
I'm sure when you were there, you saw how little those guys did. They
Yeah.
weren't busy at all.
Yeah.
That was a joke.
No, they're swamped.
Yeah. So yes, in capital, we did put, I don't recall which line, money for a lift. We got a quote from, not Record, Rotary Lift, the same lift we have now, to add an additional lift. And it's like $7,000 for the brake lathe, which,
They need.
yeah, they need, because we turn our own rotors and reuse them. We don't just,
Right.
they're broken. What's that?
Regular budget, maybe. 'Cause we don't see it over here, we go to run that, but make sure I do. What's it say? What's it doing?
I think it was in other equipment.
Yeah,
Oh.
The 39,
The bottom
no.
line increase.
It's like a 70 in your regular budget on water. Because here's a disinfectant system for the animal control.
Yes.
And then there's 45, I think that's probably
That's their body cams.
that's the only three things we have over here that I can see. That's it. Someone used to, they try to back to, I wonder if it's in his regular budget or something. There's some notes down there. Look at it.
Yeah,
But there's 18,034 in it. Is that it?
I think that. Yeah, from the light.
That's the light.
That's the contract.
Oh, okay, got you. I bet that's it, because it's a $13,000 increase.
Yes.
So you stuck it over there.
I think that's where we had to buy the last piece of
If there's, I think it's 7,500, less than 7,500.
We will ahead. Yeah, but we're already down at.
And the lift was under 7, it was like 6,800.
Right, they're pretty small accounts.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Go ahead.
Let's make sure we
Yeah, but we started here.
Will that help at all
We're
with the,
down here.
I mean, any of those
So we just need to
vehicles that I
switch
saw
these two.
that needed work,
Gotcha.
will that,
Yes, it will help because, you know, the lift now is used for general maintenance. If we had the second lift, we can put the car on the lift, start doing work, a car pulls in for general maintenance, he gets on the other lift, they maintenance it, and then go back to the big job that they're doing. Right, I mean, sometimes we do have contract jobs out for vehicle maintenance, some internal engine part, you know, some crazy steering component, something like that. But for the most part, we do a pretty good job of keeping everything in-house.
is air conditioning included in that? Is that?
We have a machine to do AC.
Okay.
I don't wanna say yes, because I don't know for sure.
Okay, because that was a sweat box.
Oh.
Now, is this communication equipment to do with Mr. Widener's stuff? Is it added in your budget already?
No, I think that's for cell phones.
Did you guys add in his?
So no, and it's actually in your presentation, because of for the new rule.
Timing.
Yes, timing, every department paying for their own thing. We did not include the $37,000
Hop over there and make a ready mark.
for the radio system maintenance and radio user fees. Typically, that's paid out of the EMA budget. Obviously, you guys are moving towards every department paying for their own, so our portion of that share of work would be 37,000 something.
Make it pay, you can put over there not included in the budget as well.
Yep.
I wasn't sure which ones were and weren't included. I didn't see a note on your request, but it didn't mean it wasn't in there, so I was asking. Because there's that communication equipment that was, it was up by almost that amount right there.
Yeah, it was 37,078.02.
That's what we're showing. It should be in there.
I think his line is communication system maintenance or something.
So did we figure out what category that was for those guys over there on Odom's Bend?
Other equipment is what we put it in.
Oh, going down here, it's right here.
What's the dollar amount?
$13,000
Okay.
is what we estimate for the new lift and new brake length.
Okay.
It's right there. And then that's the lake area, that's the money they get back from patrolling the lake over here from the feds. And then going up, I think there's no increases. That one, that maybe when we talk about communication.
So that's the cell phones. We're not giving those to everybody, we're giving them to our supervisors. We're going to give them to our supervisors, that way they can access some of that data real time while they're out in the field. Certain systems like Index, Thor Plus, and if you have it on a cell phone, it has to be on mobile data management plan. So they can't use their personal cell phone.
You
They just
might
can't.
want to look at his jail too. We're rolling down. We've already looked at the salaries for the jail, because I don't think they've got the 6%, but they do have some increases. But most of those are for food and.
Yeah.
Food supplies, and that is what it is, it's what we're doing right now. We are in the process of looking to a couple separate vendors, hoping to do a contract for food supplies, hoping that their purchasing power will reduce our cost overall, because it's insane.
And then
You wouldn't think it costs that much.
Medical and dental too, because you gotta provide medical and dental for inmates. That's the other big cost.
That's what it is.
Yeah, those are based on contracts, head counts and costs.
Yep.
And we bid them like every year, every 3 years. I can't
Every
remember.
3 years on the medical contract.
So I can't remember if it was this year or.
Yeah, last year was the first year of the contract, so it has a standard increase per year.
I think we bid them on 3 years, but can cancel early. And
Yeah, it's got that funding clause in it. But the new medical provider in jail is fantastic. They have been terrific to work with. They're really head and shoulders above the old.
And we're still working with the jail to see, they just got their bid back, and we're still working with the jail administrator on the bid. Be trying to find the best price.
So we've I think we've covered you guys directly. We've covered some of the jail.
Drug funds on there, but it's, drug control is directly flow through.
Yeah.
And then civil services, this is where they did the testing for, I don't think you guys asked for anything additional on it.
I don't think we did.
So I'm gonna keep trying to do this, just coming back here to do a summary. For your office specifically, the big things are the 5 personnel for the courthouse, the asks, 5 personnel for the courthouse, 5 patrol officers, 1 IT person, elevated personnel, add a lieutenant of patrol. That's on the salary side, and then minus the COLA. Yeah, I'm tracking that, yeah. ARPA and COLA, making that all in. And then on the capital project side, the big one is it looks like the vehicles.
Yes, sir.
And then that software.
Yes, sir.
And the jail's just food.
Yeah, I mean, that's deals and stuff, it's like asphalt, it's gonna cost what it's gonna cost. Okay, are those the big items?
I think that's everything. Yes, sir.
And that computer software, you may want to move to capital.
Yeah, we can figure that out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Weber.
And the register of deeds is on page number 32 on your document and 87 on your agenda for the salary. My pointer, this is to replace my pointer because it's like broke.
Whenever you're ready.
Well, this is my budget that I'm looking at this year. I know that I probably forwarded you something yesterday. And just to kind of look over, you may have gotten it earlier from finance. Basically what I'm doing is I am actually taking, my employees right now, we have a 8-person office. I'm taking them down to 7-person full-time office and allocating some of that money to go to part-time personnel. I have a retired full-timer who is actually going to come back part-time and help me with proofing some of the books that were damaged in the flood and other daily office work. Other than that, our data processing services that we collect a fee, it's a $2 fee that we collect with each document. And that money is earmarked for the registrar's office only. It's for computer supplies, for services and equipment. That right there is probably going to look a little more this year that I want to allocate because I'm looking to update our server. We're going to get a new server. We have a server that's 10 years old, and it is exceeding its life expectancy of 7 years. So everything, we've been having some issues with computers running slow, with reboot issues. We have, trying to think, probably the majority of all of our recorded documents come through our e-file system, which is through the network. So paper documents are kind of sparse now. A lot of our stuff is electronic. So that's why we're looking to get those servers upgraded this year. Other than that, it's fine.
Same question for you, I think, that I've been having with us on the, that server.
Sure.
Is there any reason that server couldn't be serviced or just take a partition of servers that we have here at the county?
Here's kind of one reason it may not come out as well. This particular office, like the other, several offices, actually have a data processing fee that has several $1,000 reserved for automation of their office. So if we buy them their computer, they could potentially put part of the cost toward the IT and share that is correct. But like the data processing supplies, computers, and anything related to that actually comes from a legal restricted fee.
Yeah, no, you mentioned that at the beginning, so.
But there's nothing that would stop them from sharing, as long as we can document the cost with IT.
Now, the way we have a sole source provider, which is Progress, who does all of our software. So that is the reason why we can't have Sumner County IT do our software. We have Progress that does that.
Okay.
They have created the software that we use daily, and so that's why we use them.
Okay, but that's different, but the 70,000 is not for that, right? The 70,000 is for a new server?
For the server, yes, it's programmed from them, but they get from them. Oh, are you talking about the equipment itself?
Well, I'm just trying to parse out what that $70,000 is.
It's for the server.
It's
And
for the.
I think on the server, do we do that server? Do you consider sole source?
No, it's sole source.
And the reason we do that, this is what you end up like Progress, for instance, if we buy the server from them and the actual server tears up, they'll reload the software, fix it, and no questions asked. If we buy the server from somewhere else, then if there's an issue with the server, Progress
Then we have
charges us to reload it, and there's an argument whose fault it is. That's what we've ended up with in the past.
So this is kind of the same thing with the radios, right? Like, we're paying somebody else's FTE with this.
Pretty much. And
But like, if we don't, then.
they'll end up in an argument whose fault is it? Is it the server, or is it Progress's software, what caused the problem? And we go back and forth.
I mean,
Yeah.
And we have that a lot. And now, would it be cheaper the other way? Probably, and it's probably workable, but you're still gonna have that issue.
And they would not be able to include that in their service agreement. They could not provide that,
They'll charge you.
that service for us. Yeah, they would charge us more.
They'll charge you per load if there's a problem.
Yeah.
So they're gonna get their profit one way or the other. They're gonna get it from software with the server.
yeah, no, I get it. I just,
Yeah.
it's all,
It's gonna be
I always
one-
see somebody's business models baked into these
Oh, I
things, you know
agree.
what I mean?
It's kind of,
That's it.
but we have one where we buy the server and we load our software on the server, so every time there's a problem, there's the argument, whose fault is it?
But this 70,000 is one time, right?
Yes,
So we're
yes.
gonna buy, what is their
That's gonna
recurring
be-
cost for them?
What is the one?
What's the recurring cost for?
Their service agreement every year annually. Well, and I can't say for sure because with the extended age factor we've had, it's increased almost by $7,000 for this coming year for our service agreement.
Is it about
Because of
60?
how old it is. No, it's been about 40, 45.
So we spent on FTE, about an FTE.
That's item,
It's cheap.
that's line number 4, that where it bumps up $12,000.
Yes, and those two items come from
Cheap
that
FTE,
dedicated fee. Now, the.
It sounds like they're getting it on both ends. They're getting it for the equipment
Now,
and for
communications, I'm
the.
not sure what that.
You got it.
$2,200
You got it.
That one above it, 'cause it's not.
We need to get in a new business,
Now, the communication
Got us.
increase, Brady
got
with
us.
IT has been working with me. Midstream, I think is what we're on currently. They're actually gonna be no longer providing internet service, I believe is what you were telling me.
I just.
Why is that not paid out of data processing services then, if that's a internet line? if we're on with that? They should be. paid for that. Are you talking that $2,200 for an increase in the internet line?
internet incomes.
Oh, it's funds also.
That's what he was telling me, because right now we're on Windstream.
Forgive me
For internet incomes.
for asking like a detailed question here, and I keep breaking my own rule, but I just gotta ask when I see stuff like, what is special about this software that does that, like, that is magic?
Sure, it's basically, it is set for registering documents for all of our deeds. There's no.
What do you mean by
there's only-
registering? Like,
For recording documents. So it contains all of our software. It has, like, as far as, when we record the documents, it has all the processing in it. So as far as it's set up with state requirements, taxes, it figures the documents for us, and then it holds and stores all of that information in there. And that information is then set out throughout the.
so it's meta
state.
tagging a document.
And billing, it's their billing.
And billing and everything.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's all
Yeah,
meta
It's our
tagging.
finances and everything, yeah.
All right.
There's two companies in the state of Tennessee that do this, BIS and Progress, right now, that just provide towards registers, and Progress has been with us since.
So it's a specialized meta tagging with a nice front end on it. Got it.
And as far as the bid goes, if you're on software, because software is so different, we don't, after you initially choose software, we don't rebid it. You don't make a
No, I
change.
get it.
Because it's so unique.
I'm not, I mean, I'm just,
No, that's fine, I know, I understand.
any other questions?
May I ask a question? What do you, as important as these documents are, is there a second source backup that you have to pay for?
Well, we don't pay for this, so we have a storage, we have basically like a backup disk that actually gets backed up at the bank. We actually take it to the bank, and it's a bank deposit, we transfer that every Monday, and we transfer that to the bank. But every night, it's getting backed up on site with Progress. Now, that is part of that service fee, that backup process as well,
And where's that site at?
in Smyrna, at their company.
And they store it on site
Yes.
or on the cloud?
Yes, no, on site. They have servers on site.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
What's your internet fee or phone fees that's different from what we just heard from the IT director?
So what Brady, and this was just a rough estimate that I had got from Comcast, and I'm not really sure because I'm working more with Brady on that. They've got to set us up a separate network because we cannot be on the same network as the county because of our security reasons. Because of our software and security reasons, we have to be on that separate network. So they're going to come in and set up that network, and which we're on a separate network now. It's Windstream.
But is there any reason why our IT, if you have to have a bifurcated network, totally get it. Is there any reason legally our IT department couldn't just set that up and maintain it separately?
There's a software, so it goes back to Progress with that software issue. They won't be able to necessarily guarantee security.
So they got us all the way, so this company got us all the way up to the network.
Yeah.
Man.
It's a good company, I have to say, I mean, it's been reliable for us.
I can say one thing.
I'm just saying.
The county IT security, I can say one thing, when I was talking to our state auditors, they've told us that we're the only county that has not been hit with ransomware and stuff.
Well-
We actually have good enough security that we haven't been hit.
At the county level or at this, off this system?
No, at our system, the IT, the main IT.
Okay.
So it has got really strong security, so I can't myself probably think that they've got better security than anything.
I think it's a separate VPN network. I don't know the technicals. You would have to probably talk to IT about that, because I don't know the technicals when it gets down to it. But I just know that the people that were working with Progress, they actually worked here for Sumner County back in the 80s. And then they started their company up. And so they were actually
That's
here.
even worse.
They used to run the-
I mean, I gotta say, I mean, good on them for being, for entrepreneurship, but like,
Yeah.
I mean,
It may be something you want to explore by IT can. Maybe,
I think
that may be
in
something to go
general,
back to a committee for IT infrastructure, and look at all these IT infrastructure.
Yeah.
It may be something maybe advantageous for the commission to create a ad hoc to put all this together.
I mean, because the way I'm seeing this is it looks to me like we have
Too many.
we have just outsourced a huge function. And they're very, and good looking, this is a great, like I said, used to be a government contractor, I get it, you wanna embed yourself like a tick, good on them. But like, we're not gonna disrupt you so you can't operate, but like, this is definitely something
We
we'll look
use
at.
county IT in our office.
Yeah,
IT started in the office and bled out to its own department, so.
yeah,
We've done it from day one. We have, the software we use, one of them does not provide hardware, and the other one, we actually do it in the cloud because it ended up being cheaper because they set it up that way.
Is there any state law statutorily that you're required to do this, like in this separate system, or is that just because you're using this vendor? Like, what's the statute?
I believe it's the vendor. I believe it's the.
Okay, so this is not a stat, this is just because we're baked in with this.
And I
You're
think
gonna
it's-
get into the liability dance when you do your next
Right.
contract if you start going down this road.
yeah.
Because
I
then
mean,
that would have to
it's
change
a
all
moment
the
of inertia
records.
for how much we wanna like.
I think it's a committee to.
How much
explore
pain we
in
wanna
detail
endure to get it. I
outside
get it.
budget. That way, you can have a committee to explore in detail in next year's budget.
Yeah,
Okay.
I get it.
I'm just making sure it wasn't anything the state said this versus just,
Not that I'm aware
that's what I
of,
thought.
no.
All right.
Doesn't, Terry, doesn't the election commission have about 5 different vendors that they use
Yes,
for?
the election commission
Yeah,
uses
they've got 5
Comcast,
different vendors.
AT&T, Windstream.
And there's been that same,
Amazon
Black
Web
Line Technology, there's been the same.
Does state law require that?
No.
And we can,
And they pay.
That's not what I was told by the former IT director. I can't.
we can get on the
I think it
EC,
needs
but
I think
I
you need a
just wanna,
committee to explore that,
any other questions?
of combining all your IT.
For Ms. Emmerich? Thank you, and thank you for those answers.
Of course.
Since you're quite a bit ahead of your schedule, in lunch over here at some time, there's a couple of things we could do. I could go over, since Miss Rick is sick, I could go over soil conservation.
Well, here's the first thing I wanna do, 5-minute break for bathroom.
Okay.
Let's do that.
Who is?
You gotta have
Food already?
That's right. And I'm struggling.
We're not.
Well, if they give you your time, let's-
We're only 15